Welcome and thank you for joining us today. I'm Sarah Serio with Neosho Arts Council, the host of ArtCon. Today we are joined by Nate Lindley of Ashcan Comics Pub, and welcome, Nate.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So tell us a little bit today about Ashcan and what all you do.
Sure. Ashcan Comics Pub is a strictly indie publisher. We act as a publisher, but we also are mostly promoting indie work. When it first started out, I just started making my own comic book, and very quickly I had this desire to start working with other people, and I saw that everyone was kind of in the same scenario as I was. Trying to promote your work is really like the long haul of comic books. So I started reaching out to other indie people, and before I knew it, started working with a bunch of people, publishing flash fiction and comic books. And here I am a year later, and we've published, I think, about 27 different books now. And we've sent out hundreds of books via mail. We also have a website up that has all of our digital content. So it's been a real fun experience. I love making comics, but I got to say that I've learned that I also enjoy operating on the business end too, which sometimes seems a little hollow compared to writing a story or creating art, but it's got a lot of creativity in a different way.
Exactly. So let's talk a little bit about some of your comics. What type of comic books would people expect to find from Ashcan?
We have all different genres because I work with so many different people, and we don't really commission a type of project. Usually what happens is it's already been made and it's someone that I've connected with, and then we try and push it a little further for them and add promotion and try and draw a little more attention to them. So we've done everything from horror to sci-fi and fantasy, and the only thing I'd say that's pretty consistent is I try and tell everybody I want to keep it at a PG-13 level, and that doesn't mean that there can't be violence or anything, but if it's a sword fight, gets two guys fighting, do we really need to show the blood splattering all across the screen, or can you still indicate that that guy died? And that's what I always try and tell the guys. I think in the indie world, because there are no boundaries or anything, a lot of times we can go way off into the far side with it. But I think if we think from a business standpoint, and this is, I think, important for all people in India, is to remember, is this going to be marketable still, or is it going to steer people away? Are they going to look at it and be like, ooh, I can't really show that to my kid, or something like that?
Right now, the comic industry, we are having a bit of a slowdown in comics, but that's not affecting you and the way you do business, is it?
Not really. I mean, I wouldn't say that. Some people have asked me recently, has this made sales easier? Unfortunately, no. I mean, I really wish that the answer was yes. I think that would be great if suddenly we had double or triple numbers. We have had a few more people sign up on our Patreon. Those are the people we send our comics out to regularly. The problem that I still face, even though we're not in shops and we're not attending every convention, like bigger publishers, the problem that we run into is indie publisher, every character that we have is completely new to the viewer. So, if I was selling something like, that had decades of, lore and all this stuff that went like Spider-Man or Batman, the hard part of the sale is over because they already know those characters. I wouldn't even really have to tell them about what the story is. I'm just like, hey, look, it's a new Spider-Man comic and it's one you haven't read. I'll buy that. They'll dish out $5 or something. But if you have an indie thing, and like for instance, the character I made, Oath, if I say, hey, check it out, this is a comic I made, immediately someone's like, and then they're just kind of slow to respond to it. So that's what I've experienced as being the hard part is, you have to constantly be introducing this character over and over again because you are the one source that people are going to become familiar with it. So it goes so much further than just producing a comic. That's what Ashcan has really taught me, is how much of a marathon it is. It's not, you're not going to produce a comic and people are going to flock to you. And if you only produce that character in one comic book, you got to be ready to keep going. If you want to, they're only going to want to listen about issue 1 for so long. You got to keep going.
Great. So you mentioned Oath, which was actually, you sent us some merch that we were included in our swag bags this year for ArtCon. Tell us a little bit about that comic.
Yeah, thank you very much for letting me do that because, again, just getting out to as many people as possible is my goal. Oath is probably the most meaningful comic book to me because it was Oath 1, I literally did with a piece of printer paper and a pen. The very first one. It was really rough looking, and I was very proud of it. And I look back at it now, and I see how rough it is, and I'm amazed that people even gave me any support. So anybody watching this that has that original Oath 1, thank you. I mean, that told me that I at least could do something. But it also has this sense of an element of fatherhood, of family that's involved in this superhero story. So although there's a lot of action that's going to be happening in the story, there's always this element of what does it mean to be a father? And I think that's very meaningful to me because I have two little kids. I have a 3-year-old and a 5-month-old. So, that to me is something that I'm in right now. And I think that's also part of the reason I wanted to make sure Ashcan was staying around that PG-13 levels because as a father and also as a school teacher, I think, for me, my mind is just geared towards getting kids to read and engage in creativity.
So tell us, where can we find out more about Ashcan? Where can we find your comics? How can we get your comics? Because we need comics right now.
Well, I would love to send them to you or to anybody. I mean, that's what we're all about. I love making the comics, but if they sit there and no one reads them, that's a sad story, right? So the way we operate, all of our printing, our operations all come from our Patreon page, and that's what's on the screen here. You can see that there are a few tiers. Oops, there we go. So we have a digital library where we put everything that we've published. This includes work from me and also work from all the people that I've worked with. Every book that we have becomes available digitally for $3. We also have our print membership, and you see that one in the middle for $10. And we actually send the prints to you. That's shipping included. So like I said, we operate on a very tight budget to make this happen. Aside from printing and all that, it adds up pretty quickly, but we send 2 books. They're sandwiched into one. You read one from one side and you flip it over and you can read from the other side, but there's 2 books. It's usually a comic book and something that's written in prose, in traditional written format that's accompanied with illustrations. So for example, you see here, we have Lonely Dogs Anthology. That was a comic book by Alex Jourdain. And then we had Vala, the Beast Heart, which I'm real proud about because that's a story I've been wanting to work on for a very long time. I teamed up with a guy named Stoney Williams, and we launched the prototype of that through Patreon. And we had a great time working on it. And the cool thing about it, I'm going to go over to the Kickstarter page now. We're getting ready to launch this Kickstarter, and it's going to be live in just a few days. But I just went ahead and put this up here so you can kind of see a little bit more about it. Vala it's based in a Viking fantasy world, and she is a seer, meaning she can connect with the elements. And there's chaos that's happened in Midgardia, and she is set to restore balance. And there's a lot of elements to the story that have also to do with family as well. I think that's something that always kind of occurs. There's a character named Orem in here that is her brother, and I'll scroll down a little bit here so you can see some of the cool stuff. So the neat thing about this is not only is it a comic, or sorry, it's actually a illustrated short story. Not only is it an illustrated short story, we also made it a game. This is the very first game that we've ever tried to put together, and we brought back that really cool retro game called Pogs. So the cool thing here is you see the Pogs right there, but it's not just a stack them and hit them kind of game. You can see there's also in the middle here a scorecard. So there's actually like special effects that can trigger and damage that takes place. In every chapter, this is only chapter 1 of the story, every chapter is going to have a game that accompanies it. And the nice thing about Kickstarter also is the ability to collaborate. Ashcan is all about collaborating, whether it's with writers or with artists. But we also got the cool opportunity. I'm going to scroll down a little bit here. You see the cool cover art. And there's the story. I got to get to the bonus items real quick, though, because we teamed up with a guy that does 3D printing. And we're making these cool mini room making kits, which is pretty awesome. I'm so stoked about this because you can actually make the little rune that has Vala's symbol on it. And if you remember like playing Pogs originally, you would wager against the opponent based on the Pogs that you have. Well, in this one, we're going to use the runes instead. So they're all going to be like handcrafted, so the people who get really good at this can make some really cool wagering tokens. So anyways, that's our Kickstarter. That's going to be live in just a few days. You can follow it. I'll put a link in there. But our main website is where you can find all of our material. And like I said, you can see where it says read now at the top. And here is the books that we've released this month. Like I said, we had the prototype of Vala come out. And basically what happens is you just click on whichever book you want to read. And if you're a patron, you're able to log in and you can read it just like this. So you don't have to download things. You can read it anywhere on the go. It's a pretty cool way to do it. And here's just an example of some of the art that comes with Vala. I'll go back to read now real quick just so you can see some of the other covers. Like I said, we've worked with a lot of people. So Alex Jordane's Lonely Dogs. Scroll down here a little bit, and we have a whole bunch of comics here. These are all available, like I said, for $3. Illustrated short stories, and our flash fiction anthologies. We just stopped making these, but it might come back. We've had a lot of fun with that. So yeah, that's Ashcan Comics Pub in a nutshell.
Well, this is great. I mean, to be able to have this level of comics accessible and from a small independent publisher as well. Where are you guys based out of?
We're in Missouri. So part of the reason I was so happy to go to ArtCon, you know, being local. But I'm in Waverly, Missouri, which is a little town under 1,000 people. And it's about, what was it? Can't remember how many hours it was now from Neosho, but I want to say it was like 3 or something like that. So not too bad.
Too far. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we are so thankful that you supported us at ArtCon, of course, for the past 2 years. And hopefully we will see you at year 3. And thank you for joining us today. We appreciate it. We'll also make sure to put links to all of those Kickstarter and Patreon, as well as the website, so people can find them on their own and start reading some great independent comics.
Oh, fantastic. Thanks for having me on the show.